Hi guys, welcome to this month's training. This month, now we normally gather together. However, due to the COVID-19 virus, we're exercising the National Institute of Health and the CDC's and the President's social distancing activities and so that we protect each other from the virus. However, we're still going to have our safety meeting. We're just doing it via this video. It'll be a PowerPoint presentation, and if you watch this past week's video, you'll know that the month of April is HazCom for our company. I've already published one video, and we'll be going over a PowerPoint for HazCom today, and then the next 3 weeks there'll be additional training videos, our weekly training videos on HazCom. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Make sure, now this is important, make sure that you sign a document, sign a sign-in sheet, or make sure that we get a signature proving that you watched this video so that we can incorporate it into our files to show that we at Green Circle Demolition believe in safety and that we do have regular safety training for our entire company. So make sure you get that thing signed, make sure you get it to your supervisor, and let's do a good job of documenting our training. So like I said, this week we'll be talking about this month we're talking about HazCom, and so we'll go ahead and get started on it, and I've got it right here. All right, hazardous communication training. All right, I think there's 18 slides, so we'll go over this fairly quick. The first slide is HazCom Standard. We'll be talking about the HazCom Standard. The HazCom Standard gives you the right to know about chemicals that are used in your workplace, the possible dangers you could be exposed to, how to protect yourself and others. Now, hazardous chemicals come in various forms. A hazardous chemical is any chemical which is classified as a physical hazard, a health hazard, a simple asphyxiant, a combustible dust, a pyrophoric gas, or a hazard not otherwise classified. Let's talk about what a physical hazard might be. Physical hazards are chemicals that can cause fire, an explosion, a violent reaction. And the global harmonization placard for this type of hazard is the diamond with the fire in it. Now let's talk a little bit about health hazards. Health hazards are chemicals that are harmful to your health and can cause short-term, which means acute health problems, long-term, which means chronic health problems. Now, these chemicals are identified by the placard with the outline of a human being with the star in the chest. That's the global harmonization placard for health hazards. OSHA considers a health hazard to be any chemical which is toxic, number one, is corrosive to the skin or the eyes, battery acids, hydrochloric acids, all kinds of things, is a respiratory sensitizer. It means it takes your breath away, things like ammonia, things like that. May cause cancer, birth defects, or reproductive issues. Attacks specific organs and is harmful or deadly when inhaled. Now, there are 5 employer requirements. Number 1, your employer must create a hazardous chemical inventory. Ensure each chemical has a global harmonization Style Safety Data Sheet, GHS Safety Data Sheet. Ensure each chemical container is properly labeled. Create and implement an employee training program. Welcome to your training program. A portion of your training program. Training is ongoing in HazCom. And develop a written HazCom program. We at Green Circle do have a written HazCom program. Consult your EH&S handbook to find out about your written HazCom program. Now let's talk about the HazCom Chain. The HazCom Chain starts at the chemical manufacturing plant, where the chemists classify and categorize the chemical. Safety data sheets and labels are created. Safety data sheets and labels are passed along to each company and person who handles the chemical. Chemical inventory is when a chemical arrives at your company, hazard information is passed along with it. We have an SDS book that lists all chemicals that we have in our company. If you do not have one of these, make sure you get with your supervisor and make sure you have one available for all your guys if they want to look at it. This information is added to your company's chemical inventory. OSHA requires that each company keep an inventory on all its hazardous chemicals. Let's talk just a minute about safety data sheets. Safety data sheets explain what you need to know to safely work with a chemical. Must have the global harmonization specified 16 section format. That means that there are 16 sections on an SDS that describes anything from what the hazard is, the chemical name, the manufacturer, and all the way to what to do in an emergency, overexposure, and that has information important to medical care providers and first responders. It must include certain types of information in each section. It's to help ensure that employers and employees understand the chemical. Must be readily accessible to employees in the work area during each shift. Now let's talk about labels. Here's an example of a label. Let's see if I can enlarge this somewhat for you. There you go. It has a pictogram, an identifier, a product identifier. It would be the name of it. Signal word. It would say danger, toxic, things like that. Precautionary statements. And the chemical manufacturer, importer, or other responsible party. Now, these may not always look exactly like this, but it is required that they have this type of information on them. All right. Next, we have the pictograms, and these are the pictograms that must be on every hazardous chemical, one of these type. And here we can talk about it briefly. Oxidizers would have a circle with a flame over it. And then you have a flame on a flat surface here, and that would be for flammables, self-reactives, pyrophorics, self-heating chemicals, emits flammable gases, or organic peroxides. And then if you have a picture of an exploding bomb, that would be explosives, self-reactives, and organic pesticides. If you see a skull and crossbones in a diamond, that means it's acute toxicity. That means it will kill you fast. And then you have a broken vial or chemical being spilled on a surface and on a hand, and that would be indicating a corrosive. Gas cylinders show that there are gases under pressures. And then, of course, we talked briefly about the health hazards, carcinogens, respiratory sensitizer, reproductive toxicity, Target organ toxicity, mutagenesis. That means it causes your chromosomes to break apart and cause birth defects and things like that. And aspiration toxicity. And next you have a diamond with a tree on it and a dead fish, and that means it's acute aquatic toxicity or chronic aquatic toxicity. Now, a diamond with an exclamation mark in it means it's an irritant, a dermal sensitizer. That means it could burn your skin. Acute toxicity, harmful. It could have narcotic effects or a respiratory tract irritant. Okay, now make sure you understand these signs, and they should be they will be on anything that you're looking at. Let's get this thing rolling along. All right. Now we need to talk about relabeling. Now, we know that sometimes we get bulk material in on our job sites, and it's not always a good idea to carry those bulk items 5-gallon buckets when it's just as well to put it in a 5-gallon pail and move it to the location in which you need it. However, there's a couple things we've got to remember when we do that. Relabeling can take place when your employer chooses to use an OSHA approved label in your workplace. Make sure it's a good container as well. And this is when a large quantity of chemical is broken down into smaller ones to use in different areas. Now, this could be as simple as Windex or engine oil or gasoline or anything like that. It's got to be labeled according to the OSHA standard. If you ever find a container with no label or an illegible label, contact your supervisor. You just never know what somebody might put into a container. Never use a chemical from an unlabeled container. You could assume that it's water, and it could be paint thinner or some other dangerous chemical. So never use a chemical from an unlabeled container. Let's talk about training and information. Employees must receive training on HazCom Standard requirements. Now, we've touched on it here briefly in this video, but there's a lot more to learn, and we will, if you watch the videos over the next week, you will increase your knowledge and understanding, and we'll have additional training as time goes by. Know of hazardous chemical locations, where they're located at, because they need to be stored in a place that's segregated from other chemicals. Know your chemical inventory, and know where the safety data sheets are, and know how to read a safety data sheet. Also, know how to read the labels, and we've covered that briefly. Make sure you're reading the labels. And your written HazCom program is in your EH&S handbook. Specialized chemicals we need to really pay attention to because they could be particularly hazardous in some way or fashion. So make sure you refer to your MSDS sheet. Now, the written HazCom program documents in detail your employer's plan for communicating chemical hazards. You have a right to review the written HazCom program whenever you want. Now, once again, that can be found in your EH&S, Environmental Health and Safety Handbook. Finally, let's talk about staying safe. Simple actions you can take to stay safe when working with chemicals are: remove all jewelry, use eye and face protection. After using a chemical, make sure that you wash your hands. Clean and store safety gear properly. Other simple actions you can take: know where the nearest eye wash station or emergency shower is located. Dispose of hazardous chemicals properly. Don't pour them down a drain or just throw them in a trash can. Let's take care of these things in the proper fashion. The SDS will direct you on proper disposal procedures for a chemical. Know how to deal with spills and leaks. That's another valuable resource that you will find in the SDS. So make sure you consult the SDS before you begin using a chemical. know how to respond in an emergency. Once again, that information would be found in the safety data sheet, the SDS. All right, guys, that's the program for today, this month, HazCom. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. Watch it again. If you have any questions, make sure you get with your supervisor, or you can contact me. And finally, make sure that you sign that sign-in sheet, some way to document that you have taken this training for the month of April for your company, Green Circle Demolition. Remember, Green Circle Demolition is a company that not only cares about its employees, we care about our customers and the environment. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good day, and we will see you in the next video.